Hey guys, so this is another Sunday vlog. Not really vlog, be honest with you. I just made a dress. So I'm wearing it, and the neckline, you know, the shoulder part's a little annoying. Other than that, I just wanted to test it out with one of my scraps that I have, and it worked out. So we're gonna talk about it. So today it's all about some Harlem Renaissance. Now, Harlem Renaissance, I started reading a couple years ago, maybe I think 5 years ago now. And it was basically, I fell in love with one book and then I just continue going. Now, I believe his 20-something book in the actual list. And these are books that were from the 1920s to the late 1930s. And they're not all necessarily in Harlem, but the movement during that time, so they put them in that list. Now, what I would say about the list is it varies. A lot of them are poets, so a lot of the books, when you think of the first one that was released, is a poetry book in the collection. And a lot of the poets also did at least one book, whether it's a short story collection or they had a full-on novel. So we're going to talk with this one first, and then I'm going to go through the list of the Harlem Renaissance books that I own. And this one is The Fire in the Flint, and this is Walter Francis White. Fantastic. I'm still at a there's things about this book that I'm still like, that really did happen. This book is very raw. It talks about Georgia, the South. It talks about segregation. It talks about every racial thing you could think of in this book. Now, this is following a man named Kent, and he is a doctor. He is a doctor who has traveled to different countries, who have practiced, and he's young, but he has a lot of experience. But he's also naive in believing that because he left the South to get his education in the North, and the experience he had in the North, that time had passed on and maybe the South wasn't as bad. Unfortunately for him, he got a rude awakening when he went back, and there's always that chatter of why even come back to this. And he has the goal that he wants to help, he wants to protect the people, but he's also faced with not just the things that you expect from the white folks, but also the black folks who struggle to even accept him as a doctor in the beginning. But then there's all these other things that's happening that is attracting him to want to help. We have sharecropping was going on there, and a lot of them were not getting paid. They were falsely told that they owed money, anything to keep them in debt and to keep them suffering. That was the goal. And so there's that whole idea of wanting to help, but wanting to go about it in a more mature, or we can say put together in terms of service. Now, what we know about the author is Walter Francis White is a passant. He is if you saw the man until he tells you his identity, you would think he's a white man. So he's definitely a passant, and he's also was a huge part of the NAACP. So I think that gives him a little bit of experience to add it to the story of the whole idea of doing it right way, getting going to the courts and doing all these things. But of course, you don't know who to trust. So there's that idea of being discreet with people you think you might trust because they were nice to you, and not realizing that some were sharks, some were getting him. In this, you see how you can have this need for change but not living your life. And he felt a taste of it, of this woman that can give him that, and he had so much desire to get that, but things did not pan out how he wanted to. When he left to do something, come back and all hell break loose. I thought the way it was ended was such a heartbreaking ending, but so authentic and raw in a way that things like this were happening. I did not expect that ending, but I was just like, it's kind of like I saw it coming, but then, you know, part of me was like, no, 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 no. But it happened in a way that it just was so, and you think of so many stories that why things happen, and you know it was a blatant lie. And in this you can see how that happened. I love this. This was definitely one of my favorite from the Harlem Renaissance books that I've read. I love everything about this book. I mean, I was not expecting this book to be so good, because it is not one of the ones that's popular. He's not one of the authors that you hear a lot about. So I was like, yeah, but this, absolutely good. So it's gonna go on the shelf, but let me just go through some of the books. Now, the first book in the Harlem Renaissance, it is a poetry collection. I believe it's called Harlem Shadow or something like that. I don't remember the exact name, but it is from a Jamaican author. Now, there's 2 Caribbean authors that is in the Harlem Renaissance list. Of course, Claude McKay and Eric Waldron. So those are the only 2 that I know are on, that's Caribbean, of course. But I own the most from Claude McKay. I own the most of his books because I'm Jamaican and I'm a fan of his writing. So we know his poetry collection. This is what I have. This is not all his poetry collection, but he's the most famous. And of course we have the most famous one in here, which is at the, you can see it if you go to the museum, African American Museum, which is If I Die. It is his most famous poem, and it is in here along with other one, along with Jasmine, and which I love. And I did I recite one of these before in a video, but I love this collection. I want to get everything from him, like how I own all of Lansing Hughes poetry in a really chunky book, but this is not all, but most of it is in here. Then we have Kane. Now I own 2 copies, don't know why, but I own 2 copies. He's also an author that you would consider passing, and of course he dealt with scrutiny for that, and even with Walter Francis White, where things were happening to his family and he was not going to deny his heritage, and he identified himself and his heritage, even in though he could have been killed. But this also is another author because, again, he is absolutely a passing. I would have never known the man got any black heritage. But he is the first novels. Now this book is interesting because it is written in prose, I guess, in poetry. So there's a bit of poetry and actual traditional novel in this. So it is jumping to the point where you do find that the writing style is a little bit challenging. But I enjoy this, and I feel like if you're going to read a Harlem Renaissance, start with this. Just start with a difficult one. It gets easy after. Then we have Lansing Hughes, and this is Not Without Laughter. And what I like, this is a coming of age story with a young boy, but what I like about this is that it's a family base. It is very much family tied. It's also very community tied. And also what I liked is based on when it was written, it's sometimes you think like slavery was so long ago, but it is not. In this, the grandmother was, you know, once a slave, and if you think of the year, we're talking 1920s. That's very much easy that there were so many people who was around at that time who were once slaves. And so I enjoyed this. This is another one, again, coming of age story. You will love it. Then we have Passing, which we don't need to talk about. Everybody know Passing, Nella Lawson. She is amazing. Surprise, surprise, this is not my favorite out of the 2 books. I am a Quicksand, which I will show you in a minute. I'm a bigger Quicksand fan. And another thing what I noticed is, again, quite a few of the authors in the Harlem Renaissance were biracial. So a lot of them had identity issues and concerns of within circles while outside of circles. And in the other book is where I find that I loved certain things about it more. This one was very good. I did love Passing, but I was a Quicksand fan, higher than, you know, this one. Then we have The Blacker the Berry, and this is giving me so many newer books that came out in 2020, 2021, I felt like the author read this. And I felt like a lot of people thought those books were so original and so like, for me was like, if you've read this, you've read those. It was just like, yeah, it was hard for me to enjoy some of those books that everybody was loving, because I had just like read some of these and I was just like, no. Then another coming of age, love, and she is, I would say, like the godmother of the Harlem Renaissance era. She's the one that got a lot of people published, and that is Jessie Redmond Fawcett. We're talking the big one, we're talking the Lansing Hughes, we're talking all of them do give her flowers when she was alive, because she really pushed to get a lot of them published. And she wrote this book, and this is one of the books that is not centered in the Harlem. This is centered in Philly, but I absolutely love it. This one was another one that blew me, and I was like here for it. And it does have it follows 3 young people and their life. We're talking education, we're talking matters of the heart, all of that in here. Then we're gonna go to 4 Harlem, Claude McKay, and Romance in Marcel. This one did not get published during the Harlem Renaissance. It was written in Harlem Renaissance era. It did not get published. It was shelved. And what I also realized the list had gotten a little longer is because there's books that are being discovered from a lot of these authors that there were political reasons why they did not get published, or after a while people that weren't interested in them. And Claude McKay ruffled little feathers. He definitely, people had issues, and most of it because of his political connections and things that were assumed, whether or not we know it was true. That might be why some of his book never got published. And he talks about it in Amiable with Big Feet. Yeah, the other one I'm going to show you. This one has a queer theme, which is another thing that was not happening in books back then. So, but this one I enjoy. I thought it was different out the box. I think for the time that it was also published would have been much more of a shock appeal to, I think, versus like now when you read this, it's like not as serious as you would think. But think of the time period when you do read this. Then you have Amiable with Big Feet. This is another political drivel. This is where his political thoughts is on the pages, and this one really talks about the communication that America was having when Mussolini was trying to get up in trying to get up in Ethiopia, and so there was things said in this. There's things that made me Google. There's things that made me like try to do a little bit of a deep research, because there's things that I wasn't aware of. And I learned a lot from this book. It was very interesting and different, but yeah. And the other 2 books I did not read, but because I don't like the copy I have. But this one is about, I haven't read it yet, but I really want to get into it. A young girl who was sent away to live with some people. She came back to her family. It's kind of like relearning, reintroducing yourself into your own community, your own family kind of deal. But it's in Jamaica. More, read it. I just haven't. And then of course you have this banjo, and this one is of a bunch of Caribbean people trying to come up with a band. I know this is probably funny and it's gonna have a lot of shenanigans. Again, I hate this copy. I hate this copy with a passion. I wish I could. I just have to find another copy or just power through it, because yeah. Then we got Zora Neale Hurston. Now I do not have it here. It's in my bedroom, but I do have The Eyes Was Watching God. Yeah, there we go. I don't know why I got a little slow on that one, but that one is in my bedroom. That one that I read, loved it. It is one of her, it is her best known novel, Zora Neale Hurston. But it's the sadness of knowing her life as a writer, and a lot of them, not even just her, because even Claude McKay, a lot of other ones, that they did not benefit from none of their works. and to see that everybody has pretty much, that is one of her popular books that I find that a lot of people have read. And so yeah, then I did read Of Muse a Man. I think this may have been published outside of Harlem Renaissance dates. Let's see what the original publishing date says on here. Yes, so this was published after, so I still had it up there because it's Zora Neale Hurston. She is a part of the Harlem Renaissance, but this technically is not a Harlem Renaissance book. It was published after. The same thing I can say about this one. I believe also this was published after. Yes, but I kept it under because she's the one, the author. But this is not. These two books from Zora is not Harlem Renaissance. These are the only books on the shelf that is not Harlem Renaissance. Alright, then we get to Lansing Hughes short story collection. I am still waiting to read this. I think I started and I just never really got deep in. But I definitely want to read this year. Lansing Hughes, of course, you guys know, the poet. And I do have his chunky poetry collection. Then we have a book that is so good. This is a satire. This is a satire, guys. This is a book will start a pot, get you thinking, get you wondering about certain things. And this is Black No More and George S. Schuyler. So, you see how small it is? Read it. This is so good. I wish this was a movie. I wish this was a movie. It is so good. I'm not giving you nothing else. Just the title alone. Black No More. Yeah. One, if not 5-star read for me. I still love the juiciness of the writing for this book. This is Tropic Death and it's Eric Warren. Let me tell you, he's also Caribbean. And I was just like, let me read again. Let me go back again. Let me go back just to see the time period of him writing stories with Caribbean characters. And then short story, because short story can be where I hit or miss, but the whole entire story just flow. I absolutely, the day I finished this book, I was like, oh, can we get over this? Can we read again? Because I wanted to feel that moment again of his writing. I don't know why I love this man writing so much. And the sad part is he's never published anything else. This was it. He was a journalist. And this was just something that he published. And the blurb he got some big hitter blurb in the back of this from that time period. And I was just sitting here like, why didn't he write anymore? I really wish I knew why he never wrote anything else. Because I love 5-star. Love. Still love it. Still love it. And then we got another from the Godmother, which is Jessie Redmond Fawcett, and this is Plum Bum. And I think I've read this 2 years now, maybe last year. No. I think I read this 2022, maybe. This one wasn't so bad. I didn't like the font, but it was still chunky where I can get through it where it wasn't an issue. So I like this, and I believe that there's a Kindle version of this. That was readable as well if you're interested, but I like this was a good one too. And then the last one, of course, is Nella Larson. This is Quicksand. This is my favorite from the author. Love it. It is short. I got it. It was one of those where I've seen people who were a little bit like didn't get it, that same kind of love for it like I did. But it was just something about the storyline and how it's written that I got it. It was just like, yes. And I think it talks about identity in a way that I always wonder about, especially when you're talking about people who are biracial or people who are biracial but could really pass, that kind of deal, and the education aspect of the storyline that I really enjoyed. So this was my favorite from it. Now I do want to pick up some more. You know, there are some more. I believe there's 3 or 4 more authors that I have not read the book from, where it's just they only had one book, they never had anything else that I need to get to. Claude McCain. There's 2 more books that is on the Harlem Renaissance list that I do not own. And I think that's pretty much it for like the Harlem Renaissance that I don't own. It's not that the list is not as long. Another thing about that I've learned from the Harlem Renaissance list is the fact that the list, all their books are, even though they're novels, are sometimes it's a mixture of history in their novels because of the involvement they had with what was going on socially and politically. So I find that I learned so much of that time in the books when I read them. Even in this, where it's a novel, but there are moments where he's giving you a little history of certain things that happen, like real things that happened during that time period. And he's giving you real lists where you can actually go and refer and do your own research to read upon certain things. And you see that in a lot of the Harlem Renaissance books, which I think is so good to have because I am a history buff. I love to learn things. Which is why I fell in love with the Harlem Renaissance books. But yeah, so let me know. I'm gonna end this here. Let me know if you've read any Harlem Renaissance, whether you read the author or you've read actual books from the list. Let me know. Like, you know, Zora Neale Hirsch, you might have read these other books, but you know, these are not Harlem Renaissance collection, but she is a part of the Harlem Renaissance because she did write Their Eyes Will Watch God, which is I believe it was the last book published. If I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the last book published in the Harlem Renaissance was from Zora Neale Hirsch. So we're gonna end this here, and I am so glad that this was a good one. So glad. And again, I do recommend this, highly recommend this. And if you read this, let me know how you like it. And if you plan on reading it, let's chat about it. Let's talk about some Harlem Renaissance. Yay. All right, guys. See you in the next one. Bye.